Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Inside Inter Miami, the Miami Herald show about all things Inter Miami, your favorite soccer club. We're back. Andre Fernandez here, your host, as always, joined by Michelle Kaufman. And the preseason has kicked off in a big way. We're going to talk about Inter Miami's victory in Vegas over Club America last week. Game went to PKs. An unlikely star wins the game in PKs. We'll talk a little game winner in the PK round. We'll talk a little bit about Javier Mascherano's his coaching debut. How did that go? What was that? How did it look a little different from a typical Tata Martino coached team strategy? All of that good stuff. A little bit of a controversy as a big fuss has been made about Lionel Messi's gesture toward Mexican fans that kept booing and jeering him the whole match. We'll talk a little bit about that. We'll talk a little bit about the roster, some injury updates, Drake calendar, and so forth. Who did they sign to take his place? And we'll talk about the other big game last weekend. Team USA looking good in a victory over Venezuela. A lot of young talent on the team, including Inter Miami's own Benja, who got into the game. And we'll talk a little bit about what's next for Inter Miami after this victory, as they really hit the road. They go international now, with games coming up in Peru and Panama. But let's start with that victory, Michelle. Nice start for their preseason with the win over Club America.
Yeah, I mean it was a very high profile game for the first game of the preseason. Normally I remember before Messi got here, it seems like 10 years ago, but it really was only three preseasons ago. They were playing their preseason games were behind closed doors. Even the media didn't have access to watch those games. It was basically scrimmages with other MLS teams behind closed doors, scrimmages against USL teams behind closed doors. This team, since Messi got here, as we've said, it's a public circus. It's a traveling show. It's a traveling Broadway show. First game out of the gate with basically 5 days of training. They just started training camp on Monday, and on Saturday they're in Las Vegas to play against 46,000 people, against Club America, a three-time Mexican champion. That game was no joke. The opponent was no joke. The surroundings, 46,000 people for your very first game it's a lot of pressure. And yes, I know these guys make a lot of money. This is what they do, yada, yada. But to be honest, it really was a big test. Shown on Apple TV and in front of 46,000 people, and they looked okay. They actually looked better than I thought they might look, having come off season. The guys are still working their way into shape. They have a brand new coach, and they looked okay. Now they did not possess the ball as much as they intended to, and as much as we saw before. In the first half, America dominated the possession 66% to 34%. So they started off a little bit slow, but that could be expected. But as usual, the Barcelona alumni put on a show. Once again, it was the goal that Messi scored was also thanks to Jordi Alba and Luis Suarez. The three of them combined, it was basically Suarez to Messi to Alba to Suarez to Messi. So, those guys, as we've mentioned before, it's like they have telepathy. They played together for so many years, and you could just see it when they connect. The precision and the timing of their passes is just perfect. And Luis Suarez just fed Messi the ball in a perfect position for him to make, what looks like an easy goal. It's never easy, and
Right.
other people will get the ball in the same position and miss. But the way they work together is really amazing. And so they did show that already on day one.
The
And as
band,
far as Mascherano,
the
go
band,
ahead.
the band, the band,
What
the
were
band.
your
I'll say
impressions?
the band was making good music together right off the bat. They had the nice goal there. But
They
how
were
did
in sync.
yeah?
They were in sync.
I was gonna say, how did Messi look? And I don't mean the hair. He looks like he's ready for a
The
photo
hair, he
shoot.
has a new hairdo.
Yeah.
He has a new hairdo. He's been wearing a ski cap. at the training. Like this morning, he was wearing a ski cap at training. It was chilly by Miami standards. You know, it was like 58 degrees, maybe 60, and it was drizzling and gray. But he has been wearing the ski cap. I don't know if that's to preserve his new hairdo. I don't know what's going on there.
It looks good. It looks like it was ready for a photo shoot.
I do like it. I actually like this hair. Not that it matters. I personally like this haircut over the haircut that he had last year. I think it looks better on him. It's more befitting of a man his age. I think the other one was a little bit looking like the hairdos that teenagers are wearing with all those cutouts on the sides. I don't know. It's not my thing. But anyway, it doesn't matter what I think of his hair. But I do like the new hairdo. And he looked good. You know what? He looked ready. He looked hungry. He was definitely dialed in to the match. It did not look like he was just going through the motions. I do think the team looked motivated, and they should be. You know, there's a lot of pressure on them, as we mentioned in the last episode. There's a lot of pressure on them coming off the best season in MLS history in regular season, and then having an early exit in the playoffs, and now with a new coach, there's a lot of pressure on them to perform right out of the gate, and they did. And you know, it did go to PKs. It looked like they were going to lose, and then all of a sudden, out of the blue, I was already writing my story, to be honest, as if they had lost. Well, they lost, but Messi scored and whatever. And then Toto Aviles scores on a header in extra time right before the final whistle off a corner kick from Julian Gressel, who had come in off the bench. So, you know, they ended up tying, and then they go to PKs. It was an ugly penalty kick shootout. I don't know anybody who was watching. I mean, neither one of those teams was in mid-season form. Let's put it that way. It looked like, first of all, why do they even have PKs for a preseason game?
Yeah.
I have no idea. I just assumed when Toto Avila scored, oh, okay, it's going to end in a tie. This is a friendly match. It's a friendly match. It's a friendly draw. Right. They'll shake hands and move on. And all of a sudden, nope, this is going to go to PKs because they had some little trophy that they gave out. So again, one more little sort of meaningless trophy Inter Miami can put in their trophy cabinet.
Everybody trying to cash in. Everybody trying to cash in.
Everyone's trying to cash in. There was a trophy that I'm assuming the game had some kind of name, and there was a trophy for winning that game, whatever. Of course it did. But anyway, it went to PKs, and it was ugly. Both sides had misses, 3 misses on each side, I think. It ended up going to the 6th. And then the 6th PK is Santi Morales. And some of you out there are probably going, ¿Quién? Who is that? Who is that? Who is ¿Quién es ese? Santi Morales is the 17-year-old son of, like my mom always says, a Cuban dicho, a Cuban saying, muy conocido en su casa. Yeah, very well known in his own home.
Right.
Very well known in his own home. Well, in this case, Santi Morales is 17 years old. He's came from the youth academy, but his father is Javi Morales, who is the assistant coach of Inter Miami and was the interim coach when Phil Neville was fired. He was briefly the coach before Tata took over. And Javi was a tremendous player in MLS. He's an MLS legend. So his son, Santi, is on the team. And at 17 years old is, playing and training with the senior team, which is quite remarkable. But he hasn't really had much playing opportunity. And he wanted to take the 6th kick. He signed up. He raised his 17-year-old hand to take that kick. And he did a little dramatic kick and made it. And they win the game. He runs over and hugs Messi. They all started hugging him, all the big stars, and of course his father. He had a nice embrace with his father. So spoke to him this morning.
Nice moment.
This is what he said about this moment. This is 17-year-old Santi Morales. Santi, could you repeat in English basically the feelings that you had deciding to be the 6th kicker and just what it felt like to be 17 years old in Las Vegas in front of that many people, scoring the winning PK? Can you just sort of describe it?
No, obviously a lot of adrenaline, when you're walking up to the ball, you obviously feel nervous, butterflies in your stomach, but as you get to the ball, you try to be calm, confident in how you're going to take the penalty, and that's what I tried to do.
And what was the reaction afterward with your dad? What was that like, that moment?
No, it was really emotional. Obviously, him being there and being able to share that moment with him was really special.
He does look 17. He looks like I should be interviewing him at Gulliver or something, not Inter Miami
Yes,
already.
Exactly. He looks like a kid. It's unbelievable that kid, again, in front of 46,000 people in Las Vegas, for him to do that, that's not easy. And I'm telling you, the PKs that came before him were ugly. There were some ugly shots by much more experienced players.
Right.
So for him to have the fortitude and the calm to be able to do that is pretty remarkable. And then, takeaways from the game. It's only one game. Like we said, the big stars kind of shined. They did well. The main difference that I saw with Mascherano is, number one, Yannick Bright did not start. Tata was a big Yannick Bright fan, started him, from the middle to the end of last season. I agreed with that move. I think Yannick Bright is one of the best players, biggest surprises from last season. But Javier Mascherano went with Fede Redondo, with Busquets playing together as defensive midfielders. And what happened last year, if you recall, Tata really wanted Yannick Bright on the field, and he moved Busi to the back. Busi was playing like on the back line. That's not really where Busi plays. That's not his normal position. Tata did that because he wanted Yannick Bright on the field, and it was a way to have them both on the field because they play very similar positions. Javier Mascherano was asked at the training today, we see that Busi is back to his normal position. Do you expect him to play any center back, whatever? And he said no. That is one thing that he made pretty clear on day one. No, he wants Sergio Busquets to play where Sergio Busquets normally plays, which is as a defensive midfielder, but much more involved in delivering the ball to Messi and to everybody else up front and to Suarez. That is really what he does the best. It's just he's so smart and so reliable. And with their defensive gaps, Tata put him in the back and used Yannick Bright in the position that Busquets normally plays. But it looks like Javier Mascherano has a different approach as far as Busi's role is going to be where Busi belongs, and where he normally plays is where he's going to play at least the majority of the time. And also, defensively, he said that he was pretty pleased. Defensively, they're like more of a 4-4-2, and he felt that they did well defensively. And that's where Javier Mascherano is, he's an expert in that area, and he wants to improve that part of the field. I still think that they were a bit vulnerable at times, but again, it was the first game. They did not have Drake Callender. They had Rocco Rios Novo, who literally signed 2 days before and played for USL team Phoenix, in USL, and just comes here last minute and is asked again to go in and play in a game against 46 in front of 46,000 people. Right. He's surrounded by all these stars for the first time in his career. So, what can be expected of him? I think he did okay. He did have one blunder that cost one goal. But anyway, Javier Mascherano, I think the main difference we're going to see is that Busi's going to play where Busi likes to play more. And the defense should be stronger with Javier Mascherano in charge. Here's what Javier Mascherano said. We'll translate after about his impressions and everything else after the first game.
No, bueno, obviamente hoy retomamos los entrenamientos porque llegamos el domingo muy pero muy tarde y preferimos darle descanso, tanto domingo como lunes, porque el domingo no habían podido descansar bien. Así que por lo que tengo entendido y me han comentado los fisios y los médicos, están todos disponibles para poder entrenar. Inclusive Facu va a ser una parte del entrenamiento, que tuvo una molestia la semana pasada. Así que bien, todo bien.
¿Y Drake Callender cómo está? ¿Cuál es la condición de él?
Drake sigue recuperándose con nosotros. También ha tenido una molestia entrenando en el camp con la selección, así que...
¿Cuál es la lesión que tiene?
No, es más que nada una sobrecarga, pero que lo queremos llevar con calma para que eso no se agrave.
All right. So, for those who don't speak Spanish, Javier Mascherano said, first of all, that he gave the team off Sunday and Monday. You know, they came back very, very late from Las Vegas, you know, in the wee hours of Sunday. So he gave them off Sunday and Monday to, you know, sort of rest a little bit. And then they resumed training on Tuesday. They play again next week. They're going to Peru, Panama, and Honduras. They're doing a 3-country Americas tour. South American, Central American tour. So anyway, he said he gave them a couple of days off. They were back in training on Tuesday. He said, as far as he knows, and as far as after talking to the trainers, that everybody is ready. Everybody is healthy. He mentioned even that Facundo Farias, who did not train last week because he had some kind of injury, that he was expected to return to training this week. There had been some speculation online on social media that the fact that he was not there meant that he's leaving. He didn't indicate anything like that. He said that he was expected to be training again this week. Also, an update on Drake Callender. Drake was injured last week, a muscle strain during U.S. national camp, and came back to Inter Miami. Javier Mascherano says that he's still out. They're being cautious. He says it's not serious, but they're being cautious because it's a muscle strain, and you know, they don't want to take any risks. So that was basically sort of the injury update and roster update. He does expect that everybody who's available will be able to travel for the team to Peru, for the game to Peru.
Sounds like they might have to keep that goalie on a bit, because maybe it sounds like they're going to ease Drake back into the lineup slowly. They don't want to rush him back, considering they're in the middle. This is our exhibition game.
Exactly. And Oscar Ustadi, who did play some, you know, one game anyway, started last season, toward the end of the season, he re-signed last week, but is still waiting his visa papers. So they have only one healthy goalkeeper right now, and his name is Rocco Rios Novo. So right now they have exactly one keeper, and that is the starting keeper until Oscar Ustadi gets his visa and until Drake Callender is back from injury.
Oh, they're going to have to. Going back to the Mascherano thing, it's interesting, too, with the move with Busquets. I mean, I know we've said he lacks coaching experience, but maybe the fact that familiarity with what he sees is the best, you know, fit for the players, where to put them, you know, like their play to their strengths, that type of thing. I wonder if in time, little by little, I mean, we're only seeing tiny glimpses of this right now with one game and some practices, but I wonder if in time that could be the one, maybe a benefit, the fact that familiarity that he has, even though he's a first-time coach when it comes to this.
Yeah, he played with them. I mean, he played on Barcelona with those four. So when we talk about the telepathy that the four of them have, it's really telepathy times 5 now, because the man on the sideline in the coach's box was on the field not that long ago with those four. So he knows exactly how they move. He knows their pace. He knows their strengths. And this is not to say that Tata doesn't. Tata's a very experienced coach. But Javier Mascherano played with them. He wants to put them in the positions that they, you know, I think he's going to be very much a player's coach. Obviously, you know, the guy is 40 years old. He's only 2 years older than some of the guys on this team. So, you know, I think he's relates to them from a player perspective because he was playing not that long ago. And not only that, he was playing with them. He was playing with them. So he's very familiar. You know, the big question mark with him is, you know, is he going to know MLS? Is he going to know the other teams? Is he going to be able to scout them and be able to know how to best attack all the other teams in the league when he has no experience in this league? And just tactics in general, having not been a head coach on the club level, those are the questions. But as far as familiarity with this team and with the star players on the team, he definitely has that.
Well, the other thing that caused a big stir was Messi's little gesture. Does this? People have speculated if that's him kind of firing back. He got booed a lot by the Mexican contingent in the crowd. And was he firing back at the fact that, the whole World Cup thing, like you guys don't, I mean,
You have
what was your
0 and we
impression
have
of that?
3.
You have 0, we
Yeah,
have
I mean,
3.
yes, you have 0. You, Mexico, has 0. Argentina has 3.
Right.
Also, I believe Argentina has beaten Mexico 3 times in World Cups. I'd have to look at the stats, but that was another thing that I heard was a reason. Yeah, Messi, everyone says, oh, he's so nice. He's so humble. He's so this. The guy is a killer. Let's be honest. He is hyper competitive. He is very, very competitive. We saw what happened last year, by the way, also involving a Mexican team, a Mexican coach. If you recall what happened in the hallway in that Monterrey game, where he got into it with the coaching staff, that was also a Mexican club team and got into it with Messi. So I think, the Mexican fans are extremely passionate, and they're not afraid to let Messi know what they think of him. And I'm not saying they don't also revere him. I think they do. There was a lot of pink number 10s in that audience and in Las Vegas. However, there's definitely some taunting going on both sides. And Messi's going to play right into it. I mean, Messi's not going to sit back. That little 3-0 thing, it was definitely a message. Mascherano was asked about it, by the way. And he said, well, I don't know exactly, but he said, we do know that the Mexicans do have some problems with Argentina because of our World Cup history. So, he said that he was suggesting that the gesture from Messi was related to the Mexico-Argentina number of big trophies that Argentina has versus number of big trophies that Mexico has. So, yeah, don't mess with Messi. Let me just say, he may look like, this little guy out there and, walking billboard and everything else.
I want that on a t-shirt. Don't mess with Messi. I want that on a t-shirt.
Don't mess with Messi. He's tough. The guy is tough. The guy is competitive. We saw him screaming at coaches and demanding apologies from coaches in the hallway with that Monterrey game. I mean, it's he's passionate. He's very, very passionate. Yeah. And he had talked to Benja last week about what do the Argentines have? What is it about Pochettino as a coach that he can bring to the U.S. national team? And to a man, they all say the same thing. It's the passion of the Argentine players, the passion of the Argentine coaches. It is something that definitely brings them to a little bit higher level. And Messi has it. He has a lot of that passion for the game and competitive spirit. I mean, he wants to win every rondo at practice. He wants to win. So he may be 37. He may be 8-time Ballon d'Or winner, blah, blah, blah. World Cup defending champion. He wants to win even in an exhibition game. And if the Mexican fans are going to be saying stuff to him, he's not just going to sit back and take it. No.
And that's what I was going to say. That's why you see him do what he does in an exhibition game like last week. And I think, Michelle, in general, when you're that good, when you're that ultra of a superstar player, talent like he is, you have to be. I think that's part of it. You have to. You know this.
You have to have an ego.
Look all the athletes.
A long time.
Yeah, yes. All the athletes you've covered over the years, both home and abroad. They all the great ones all have that little, like, they don't want to lose at anything at all.
Anything.
And he has it to.
You always hear
level.
that. Yeah, you hear that with the Roger Federers of the world, or in football and basketball. Those guys who they don't want to lose in a card game. Right. They don't want to lose in a training session. They want to win.
Nothing.
In a ping pong table. They want to win everything. And that's Messi. And that's why he is where he is. Let's be honest.
For sure. Well, speaking of Benja, let's talk a little bit about that other big game from last weekend. USA, a nice victory over Venezuela, kind of showed off some of the young talent, some of the MLS talent that that Mauricio Pochettino is trying to evaluate as the team moves a little closer to the 2026 World Cup. Benja himself played 66 minutes. He drew a card, but he looked pretty good according to Pochettino. He was impressed. Let's see, before we get to it, let's see what Benja had to say about his experience on USA.
Al frente de la ciudad que me crió, así que nada, muy contento por la oportunidad y bueno, tenemos un partido más que ahora nos toca enfocarnos en eso y aprovecharlo.
Benja, ¿qué tanto ayuda este tiempo con la selección pensando en Inter Miami? Porque es temprano en el año, ¿no? Pero ¿cómo has logrado equilibrar ambas partes?
Sí, obviamente hay buen nivel, así que esto nos prepara a nosotros, a los jugadores que están jugando en la liga, nos prepara para volver con sus equipos a buen nivel, buen ritmo, y creo que en eso estamos, ¿no? Obviamente mostrarnos acá con la selección, pero bueno, prepararnos bien para la temporada que es larga.
Benja, ¿cómo te sentiste posicionalmente hoy?
No, muy bien, la verdad que muy bien, doble 5 o doble 6 como se dice acá. No es mi posición, quizás juego un poquito más adelantado, pero la verdad que me sentí muy bien, me gusta mucho la manera en que juega Pochettino, la manera en que nos para, la manera en que nos hace mover, así que me sentí muy cómodo, la verdad que la pasé muy bien, fue un partido donde tuvimos la pelota mucho y bueno, la verdad que muy cómodo, muy contento con cómo jugué, en la posición que estuve, no me puedo quejar de absolutamente nada.
¿Qué le dijo?
Before we get to anything, nice job, Michelle, panning down and getting that mate shot in there real quick. That was funny.
I did that. Did you notice? That I did
I was
that?
laughing
Yes.
right during the video, yeah. So.
Yes, I did. Let me just scroll down just a little bit, pan down to show the mate. By the way, Speaking of the mate, he was asked a different reporter asked him what brand of mate was he using? Was it an Argentine brand or Uruguayan brand? And he very sheepishly admitted that it was Canales, which is a Uruguayan brand. And the reporter was like, Uruguayo. Yeah. He was not using an Argentine mate. His favorite is an Uruguayan mate. So anyway, that was interesting. But
it's on a fine line there, Benja. Be careful.
Yep, got to be careful. As far as Benja, again, another young guy we're talking about. He looks so professional. He acts so professional, which is something that the guys in the U.S. camp mentioned. That Benja, before I translate what he said, some of the guys in the U.S. camp said that they can tell that he plays with Lionel Messi and Busquets and Alba and Suarez because even though he's 19, they said he just carries himself with such poise as somebody who is playing with some of the best players in the world. Nothing phases him. He acts like he belongs. You know what I mean? Yeah. He acts and he looks like he belongs, and he's 19 years old. He's only 2 years older than Santi. He's 19 years old. What he said in the clip there is that being in the U.S. camp will definitely help him coming back to Inter Miami, that, he's training at a high level there. And he's still with them, by the way. They're playing against Costa Rica on Wednesday. So then he'll come back to Inter Miami. He said that by being in this camp with these high-level players, it's keeping him in rhythm. It's getting him in very good shape for when he returns to the national team. And that all these players, these MLS players who are in this camp for USA, they're all going to return to their MLS teams in a good form and good rhythm and having played at a high level. So he said that even though he's missing the beginning of camp, he feels that it is very beneficial. He also was asked, how did he feel positionally where he played? Because he played a little bit more of a defensive holding midfielder role as opposed to an attacking role, which is what he plays more with the club. He said that is not his normal position. He normally is more of an attacking player, but he said he felt comfortable and he'll go wherever they put him and he'll play wherever they need him to play. But he felt that he did okay and that he felt comfortable in that little bit more defensive role, and that he's enjoying very much how Pochettino trains, the team, and he likes the vibe around the U.S. camp. So he seems like a very happy camper drinking his Uruguayan mate.
Yeah. And but again, a good experience. Like you said, this is where it pays off. Playing with the legends, playing with the superstars at such a young age. And it's funny, as baby faced as Santi looked, it's funny. Benja, now I'm starting to forget he's 19. he's starting to even look more mature. He's starting to look like he's in his early mid-20s already instead of being
He
19.
does.
It's just the
He looks
presence.
like a man. Yeah, he doesn't look like a teenager. He started off looking kind of like, a teenager, and now he's filling out physically. He's gotten, stronger, and even in his face, like you said, he just looks older. He looks like he's maybe 22 instead
Right.
of 19. So yeah, he's definitely someone who the trajectory for him is
Oh, yeah.
up. He's just
It's
getting started. He's 19 years old. He already played in Olympics. He's playing with Lionel Messi and these other guys, and he's on the U.S. national senior camp at 19 years old, the youngest guy. So very impressive.
Also now the U.S., for those paying attention, 4-1 so far under Mauricio Pochettino. I know it's early, and we're not going to get too excited. We've seen positive strides before, but so far so good. And overall, it looks like with their new director there. And let's see how much they can carry this going forward.
I want to throw in one little behind the scenes thing that I like to sometimes when I see something behind the scenes to share with you guys. Pochettino, it was my first time seeing him in person. And one thing that really struck me, aside from, his relationship with the players and the tactics, this and that, is that when he came out to the training grounds, he made it a point. He went up to every single reporter, camera person, every single person who was in the media who was attending the training session. He went up and put his hand out and introduced himself and said hello, one by one, to me and to everybody, to the camera people, photographers, anybody who was out there with the media with a credential. He made it a point and came over and made like a receiving line, came over and said hi, introduced himself, and shook hands with every single person, which that I'm telling you, I've been a sports writer for 37 years. I could count on maybe two fingers, maybe not
If that,
even.
right.
That doesn't happen. That just doesn't happen. So this guy has coached at Chelsea and Tottenham and PSG. He's a big deal. And for him to, go out of his way to say hello to every member of the media who was there, I thought that was a very telling gesture about what kind of person he is.
I can only count two players that I've ever covered, two baseball players that ever did that. It was Martin Prado and Miguel Rojas with the Marlins, that were nice enough to always say hello and always kind of go around the room and say hi, that sort of thing. But not coaches. Yeah, especially think about it. Maybe you might see that, let's say, from a coach of a specific club or specific team, because you're introducing yourself for the beat. So they know you know who they are. But this is the national side coach. I mean, he's going to deal with all sorts of media all the time that's going to change left and right. And he's taking the time to do that.
Yeah, he's not based in Miami. Right. He's not based in Miami, but he still felt that he wanted, I introduced myself and now he knows. And it was good because now he sees the people who cover the team, even like me. I'm not covering them full time because I'm in Miami. But as the World Cup gets closer, I'll be a familiar face. And I think that was very telling to me about his interpersonal skills, which is something that every player talked about. They said that when he's on the field, when he's during practice, extremely, extremely demanding and extremely intense. Off the field, very chatty. And I can tell you also, after the press conferences, he doesn't just stand up and walk out. He stands up and chit chats a little bit before he leaves the room. And so he's very friendly. I will say that he's a very friendly, approachable player. And, I got a little up close look for the first time, and that was my first impression.
Well, I know we as reporters, we definitely appreciate that. But one of the important things is that he has that, like you're saying, with the players, and hopefully the positive impact trickles onto the field as well. And it looks like it has so far. Hopefully it continues as we get closer and closer to that World Cup in about a year and a half time as we're getting there. But in a much closer, much closer to this is going to be Inter Miami, who's also just getting started. The next two international games, they're going to Peru January 29th, a week from this week, Wednesday, for their next matchup. And that will come against Club Universitario de Deportes, an 8 o'clock start Eastern time. And then the following Sunday, February 2nd at 5 o'clock Eastern time in Panama City, they're taking on Sporting San Miguelito. So taking the show on the road literally now, not just to the other side of the country, but now the world tour part of this mini preseason tour begins.
Yeah, and then they go to Honduras after that, and then they return to Tampa to play against Orlando City. So it is another international tour, not as crazy as what they did last year. They're not going to
That's a
Asia and
mini
the
tour.
Middle East. Yeah, they're traveling to South America and Central America, which is much closer. It's still going to be an opportunity for them to play in front of very passionate fans. Again, the fans in those three countries are going to be very passionate. They're going to be very excited to see Messi. So it's going to be high pressure games, even though they're preseason. But the travel and the wear and tear on the body will not be what they did last year. And I think that that was a very wise decision on the part of the team management, not to send them all the way across the universe, but instead keep them in South and Central America. They'll still get great competition, but the wear and tear on the body won't be as much. And that's really important as these guys continue to age. We're talking about Messi and Suarez are going to turn 38, and, they're not getting any younger. None of them are. But traveling the distance that they traveled last year was really rough. So I think this is they're going to get their money, because let's face it, that's what these foreign tours are. It's because the promoters are willing to pay millions of dollars to see Messi in their home country. So they're going to get their millions of dollars, but they're not going to, trash the players' bodies in the meantime. They're going to have some rest.
Yeah.
The games are a little bit spread out. Like you said, there's a game Wednesday and then a game Sunday and then another break. So they're going to have some rest time in between. I think it's a much healthier preseason plan, what they're doing this year.
These Ferraris and Lamborghinis have some miles on them already, so they need to be taken care of. You can't burn them out, and they need a tune up as soon as you get back. They gotta take care of their bodies better. They're doing that, and and like you said, the pomp and circumstance will be served, the money interests and all that. Like you said, that's why we're seeing people giving trophies out for exhibition games. Everybody wants a piece. Everybody wants to cash in on the big names right now of this team. This team is a global brand now with global superstars. So they gotta have that, but they gotta have that balance.
Yeah. And they still are the hottest. I wrote in my story the other day, the Vivid Seats statistics. They sent me some stats from Vivid Seats that the top 5 MLS games this season so far for ticket sales all involve, surprise, surprise, Inter Miami / Messi. So
Right.
even though, I think
Messi.
the novelty has worn off. Inter Messi. I think the novelty has worn off a little bit. It's not like the craziness that it was when he got here, and there were 400 reporters at practice and it was complete chaos everywhere he went. It's not like that. It has calmed down, but still, wherever he goes to play, the fans follow. So it should be interesting the rest of this preseason to see what they do. They have some new signings, a Venezuelan guy, Telasco Segovia, an Argentine defender, Gonzalo Lujan. They're still awaiting their visa papers. So we're waiting for to see how they play, because we haven't had a chance to see them yet.
Yeah, so we'll probably may have a chance to see them maybe toward the end of this preseason run, or maybe once the season starts. And then, of course, we got to keep an eye on this goalie situation as soon as our calendar is ready to go. So until then, Michelle and I will be back for another episode next week. I'm not sure exactly which day, but it'll involve the next stops on this preseason tour for sure. But we thank everybody for watching on YouTube or MiamiHerald.com. And obviously the ones that can only listen to us, we also thank you as well. Make sure to listen to us on Spotify, iTunes, you name it. It's available there. But until then, again, for Michelle Kaufman, I'm Andre Fernandez. Thanks for watching Inside Inter Miami. We'll see you next time.